and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new season of racing at the Middle of the Pack Racing League. Known in short as the MPRL, we're the community that keep the racing flying here on iRacing with plenty of series for newcomers through to professionals. And today we're getting a whole new season of racing underway to carry on from where we left off prior to the summer. Indeed, some of you may remember we had a hot and intense season of racing which kicked off 2023 with the Cruising USA GR86 Championship, a celebration of the arrival of both the Toyota GR86 Kazoo Racing Cup car, but also a celebration of motorsports in venues across the United States of America. Well, after the extended summer break, we are back to wrap up the portion of 2023 with an all-new run around the world, albeit instead of being around the United States of America, we are making our way across Europe for what is going to be 12 rounds of racing action in the Radical Eurotrip Championship of 2023. All new to the Middle of the Pack Racing League, we're going to be seeing our drivers making a trip from 12 iconic European venues, starting with the Northern Cup, then to the Central Cup, and then to the Southern Cup, as we'll come to shortly with the schedule. And come the end of it all, we'll be crowning our champions in the Pro, Prime and Am classes. Overall, but also over the course of the entirety of the Cups, plus also we have a Teams Championship, which is ever more important this season, as there's a prize up for the Teams Championship just as much for the Drivers' Championships. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here with plenty to talk about in the build-up to today. And as you can probably hear and see in the background at the moment from circuit side, we've got the roar of Radical SR8 machines, the British manufactured and made Radical car with its V8 engine, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and weighing in a very light manner, indeed with plenty of power, 380 brake horsepower, being partnered with a 650 kilogram chassis. It is an absolute stormer of racing and one that's much celebrated when it comes to the real world of motorsport, and we thought it was only appropriate if we're going to a trip of Europe, then we may as well take a fine European piece of motorsporting machinery in the form of the British Radical, put the two together, and that's going to be playing host to what our drivers drive around the circuits as they conduct this championship. But as we get ready to go racing today, let's just point out to you this broadcast is being brought to you live, albeit as a post-round broadcast for your viewing pleasure. So what does that mean in practice? It means the racing actually itself occurred as of what was Wednesday the 6th of September. We're bringing it to you as if it were live this fine Saturday the 9th of September 2023, and therefore it's all going to be as close as possible to the raw live experience, albeit with a couple of caveats. In particular, we can't get you replays of action we may potentially miss here in the production booth, but at the same time we'll do our very best to bring you all the race action as if it were live. This live broadcast is being brought to you by two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly via YouTube at TX141TX, alternatively also known as Paul Walsh on the YouTube channel, and we also have on Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141 as a broadcast available to you there, and welcome to you whether you're tuning in via YouTube or turning Twitch. But who is TX141 or Paul Walsh? Well, allow me to introduce myself. I'll be your host and commentator for this season. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And well, without further ado, let's take you through our schedule for today. Timed in British Summer Time, that's BST, but you know, still calling it time +1 at UTC +1. And as we can see, in just over 15 minutes time, we're going into our first qualifying session of the season, and it's going to be 15 minutes in duration with all the drivers making to the circuit in defined intervals, and we'll get to see who can lay down the mark when it comes to outright pace over a single lap. After which we'll be making our way to the grid for our first race of the season, the 30-minute sprint here at Spa-Francorchamps, and indeed, what a circuit to be kicking off the season as well. We haven't really talked too much about the circuit, the Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, but we'll come to talking a little bit more about it specifically very shortly, as let's tell you a little bit about the wider calendar. As we can see, we're going to be starting off with the Northern Cup. The first 4 rounds really focused around the Northern European countries, and where it's going to be Belgium and Great Britain, which we form in the formulation there. In the fact we have from the 6th of September, we kick off at the circuit, the Spa-Francorchamps, everybody's favourite Belgian circuit, and then we'll come on to everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit in the form of Circuit Zolder. Perhaps a lesser known circuit by comparison to many, but still a circuit not to be underestimated, and we'll get to see exactly why in a week's time. That'll be on the 13th of September, after which we then have our third sprint in succession by making our way to the United Kingdom, and that'll be at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit on the 20th of September, after which we'll then make our way to the home of British Motorsport for our first feature race round of the season, round 4, and that'll be on the 27th of September at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And well, Silverstone needs no introduction when it comes to high-speed, high-downforce racing, and we'll hold the introduction until when that broadcast occurs, after which we'll take a brief week's break before returning for our Central Cup of round number 5 through to 8, and we'll kick off with the Red Bull Ring in Austria, and with the sprint race there on the 11th of October. That's all going to be about the straights and heavy braking zones, and we make our way to the highly technical and difficult to overtake at Hungaroring in Hungary for round number 6 on the 18th of October, and then we make it another third sprint in succession with the Hockenheim Ring playing host in Germany on the 25th of October, October, but we have our second feature race round of the season at the Circuit de 24 du Mans, or as we all know and love and refer to it by the local city, Le Mans, for round number 8 on the 1st of November. Then we have our second mid-season break before returning for our final cup of the season. That'll be rounds 9 through to 12, kicking off with a triple header in Spain. That's right, we're going to the country that definitely has plenty of circuits to be celebrated, kicking off with the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya on the 15th of November. Then we'll be making our way to Motorland Aragon, recently introduced the iRacing service as of 2023, so a lesser known circuit compared to the majority on this calendar, and that'll be on the 22nd of November. Our penultimate round on our final sprint race round of the season will be the Circuito de Jerez, and will the sprint race there on the 29th of November will be one to watch out for, given the sweeping corners of the circuit, and then catch out many a driver very easily. And then our season finale will be at the Imola circuit in Italy on the 6th of December, our final feature race round. And indeed, what a place to bring it all to a close at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari, and we look forward to that to conclude the Southern Cup. But then coming on to our prizes for this season, you may be sat there wondering what prize is up for grabs for our drivers. Well, firstly, we've got plenty of prizes returning from the Cruising USA GR86 Championship, including the $20 prize for the winners of the Drivers' Championships in each of the classes. So whether they win in the Pro, the Prime, or the AM class, all of our championship winners will receive $20. We also do have an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event, which will be held in December, and that'll be for finishing first, second, or third in the respective Drivers' Class Championship. So that'll be applicable to our Pros, our Primes, and also our AMs. We also do have $5 up for grabs for the winners in each class in each of the cups. So starting with the Northern Cup for rounds 1 through to 4, and then we'll have that for the Central Cup for rounds 5 through to 8, and we'll also have it for the Southern Cup for rounds 9 through to 12. We essentially have a different set of statistics and standings to show who's the leader in the Cup as well as in the overall championship standings. We then also have the return of the raffle draw prize, the $40 prize, the biggest one available out of all of the prizes there, and that is for any drivers completed at least 10 rounds. Their name will be put into a sorting hat, and come the end of the season, the admins will draw a name from the hat, and the name that is drawn will be taking home the biggest single prize of the series, and that of course encourages participation, because you may finish right at the back all season, but if you're able to finish every single race, you could be coming home with the biggest prize on the list. And we also have a new prize for this season. You can see it at the bottom there in bold. It's $30 for the winners of the Teams Championship for this season. We've always had a Teams Championship. We've never accoladed a prize to it, but this time we have, and the prize will be split across the team members. It's at their jurisdiction how they want to split it. We'd encourage them to do it equally, whether it's a team of 2 or a team of 3 drivers, and it's a maximum of 3 drivers per team this season. Also with the stipulation that no team may consist of more than 2 pro drivers. They must have a Pro-Am or an Am in that combination, and therefore we are going to be seeing a number of teams that will consist of a variety of Primes and Ams. Indeed, I think we've got one team on the grid that's all Am drivers, and you never know how they may get on, given the fact that all points will be accrued in class, not overall in terms of finishing positions. Now, coming on to our drivers, we talked about the classes. Let's show you who's going to be on the grid for this season, and we start off with the Pro class. And as we can see, we've got 13 entrants in the top tier class of this season, and a good number of names that you'll be very familiar with, including previous season champion Jason Landry there for Sunday GT Turtles. He'll be flying the number 5 once again. We also do have the return of Logan McKenzie, moved up from the Prime class in the GR86 Championship to the Pro class. He'll be in the number 4 ATC Gold car for Alpha Touring Challenge. We also do have James Logston, the Bear Poke driver in the 42, the driver who was widely regarded as the man to take on Landry. He couldn't quite pull off the challenge in the end, but he came very close, and we look forward to how he gets on this season. But we also have some new names on the grid, including Peter Lowe there for Bear Pope 0, joining the Bear Pope ranks in the number 11. We also do have in the number 81 Marcus Milewski, the privateer there, who we look forward to seeing out on the circuit, albeit I believe he's not in attendance today. And well, we've also got Jake Gertson there for reverse grid racing in the number 16. We then come onto the Prime class. And here we can see another 13 entrants, kicking off with the 100 there of newcomer Charles Hosey, the Rockefeller Racing Green driver. And Rockefeller Racing bringing 3 teams to the grid this season. You're going to have the gold, green and red outfits. And again, a variety of new names such as Hosey, and also some familiar names, including Ilya Speaker there for Rockefeller Racing Gold. But it's not just about Rockefeller Racing. We also do have the return of Lee Porter for middle of the pack racing in the 180. Also John Lauzon for Alpha Touring Change at Silver in the 177. And we also do have a newcomer there and a new team on the grid for this season at Fotan Klang and 144 of Dominique Ford being one of their drivers in the team, and I believe they've got 1 driver in each class. We then come on to the AM class, on our most populated class out of our 50 entrance drivers in total. And here we've got the class that consists of a whole variety of drivers. And again, some very familiar names. Perhaps the most familiar name on there will be our champion from the GR86 Championship in the 212. He returns to absolutely shine high for Rockefeller Racing Red. It's Samuel Bernardi. He was a privateer last season, but now he's going to be representing the Rockefeller Racing division there. We also have the return of Dan Richard, a driver who was always pushing for top 5 finishes in the M class, and we look forward to seeing how the 213 driver gets on. And we do have some newcomers on the grid today, including David Turn in the 235 for Slipstream Sloths, I should say. We also have Nick Yakubov, who is going to be joining the Slipstream Sloths team in the 288, and we also have in the 299 Keith Wilfred there for Rockefeller Racing Red. There's again a whole variety of drivers on the field, indeed some familiar faces and plenty of newcomers, and therefore we've got plenty to look forward to and seeing how they all integrate against one another. And I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, just in the pre-season practice races and media races, well, there's a lot of intensity there, and indeed some newcomers really started to spar up closely with their rivals in the classes, and having new blood on the grid is always welcome. But we said a little bit about the circuit the Spa-Francorchamps earlier. In fact, we need to properly introduce it. Well, let's do that. We're going to be racing today at the circuit the Spa-Francorchamps with a classic pit lane, and that's the pit lane that runs out of La Source at turn number 1 and runs all the way up the hill to the exit of Radion, going onto the Kemmel Straight via turns 3 and 4. And this circuit, located near the city of Stavelot in the Wallonia region of the state of Liège in Belgium, is a circuit that arguably is perhaps one of the oldest in the European scene. This circuit, when you see it on a circuit map, was provided to us by iRacing.com today, and thank you to iRacing for their brilliant simulator and the circuit maps that come with it. This circuit has evolved massively since its inception in the 1940s, in the fact that this circuit originally started out as a trip around pretty much the local terrain and villages within the Ardennes forest, but it has been cut down from the original, I believe, what was almost 15-mile length all the way down to what is now a 4.35 mile or 7-kilometer circuit. And this Grand Prix circuit is one that is much loved around the world, indeed plays host to many events in the year, including the Formula 1 Grand Prix that's always held at Spa, also the 24 Hours of Spa and events in between. And it's cool, however, this circuit has 3 unique sectors and 19 corners that are spread amongst them, where the idea is this circuit tests a little bit of everything of the car, but it does have some notable long straights and also some corners which are effectively becoming household names today, where it be La Source, Alternative Pouron or Blanchimont. Indeed, there's many a corner here that as we call them out, you'll think, I know that one, and I've heard somebody mention it in the kitchen at work. But as our drivers make their way around across the start line, because it will be the classic pit lane, we will have the rolling start procedure kick off on the exit of turn number 1, but you can imagine the timeline itself is in the rundown towards La Source going into turn number 1, and as our drivers make their way out the opening hairpin, and then charge their way up the hill towards Uruge and Radion. One of the hardest corner sequences in the world of motorsport, for the fact you get it right and you'll feel absolutely king of your craft, but get it wrong, it's very easy to get it wrong. You can find yourself running wide or worse in the barrier. Our drivers will make their way through turns 2, 3 and 4 there in a massive uphill descent, where it's all about balancing the throttle and full commitment as they then go full throttle out of Radion and onto the Kemmel Straight. Now conclude sector 1 before they head into Le Combe at turns 5 and 6. The chicane there, the first of many chicanes in the circuit, and as they go through the right into left-hander, they'll come through the right-hander at turn number 7 and downhill into Rivage Corner, or Saint-Devote as it used to be known. Coming through the long right-hander, they have to deal with the fact the corner is heavily off-camber and it's a downhill drop through the apex, where they then switch back to the left-hander, previously known as No Name, but now known as Jackie X Corner, in celebration of the home hero. And as they make their way out to turn number 9, they have another off-camber corner with a very high apex curve which can unsettle the car, and then come down into turn number 10, and that will be Pouron Corner at turns 10 and 11. And what a double left-hander it is, and the fact it's an off-camber left-hander, it's also one of the highest-speed corners on the circuit, and one where if you don't carry enough speed out the corner, you'll be very vulnerable to an overtake into the Flanders chicane at turns 12 and 13. But going through the medium speed chicane, our drivers then make their way into Stavelot 1 at turn number 14, and that's where sector 2 concludes, with sector 2 being a very technical sector compared to the power dominated sector of sector number 1. And as they come out of Stavelot 1, then they make their way into the Curve de Paul Ferrier, also known as Stavelot 2 at turn 15, and it's a flat out run out of there all the way out towards Blanchimont at turn number 17, where it's all about lifting off the throttle and committing to that fast left-hander, and indeed plenty of runoff there if drivers get it wrong, but they'll be looking to get it right as they head down towards the final 2 corners, the bus stop chicane at turns 18 and 19, where you can expect a large portion of the battling action to occur as our drivers battle under braking there to come out of the final 2 corners and go onto another lap at sector 3, much like sector 1, very top speed driven, and therefore you have that interesting contrast of the 3 different sectors here, and getting the car set up right for success is key. But as we come onto our rules for today, and we can't go racing without rules, we should point out that fixed setups are being used for this series. The setups are provided by the middle of the pack Racing League before each round, so our drivers will not be able to tweak anything on the car, so therefore it all comes down to driver ability, and car fuel loads have been restricted to 46% for this season, and what that means is in our sprint races there will be no pit stops, but meanwhile in our feature races there will be a pit stop for fuel. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be operated, lasting 15 minutes to split into 2 equal halves. The first 7.5 minutes will see all the AMs go out onto the circuit because they are the most populated class, and then we'll bring them all into the pits around the 7.5 minute mark, and we'll see the Prams and the Pros go out together, and they'll complete the second half of qualifying there and look to get a time on the board. So with effectively only around 7 to 7.5 minutes of qualifying available to our classes, it does mean that qualifying is highly pressured as always. Sprint race wise, the race shall start via a double final rolling start, which is the tradition of the middle of the pack racing league. Indeed, we decided to buck that trend last season, the GR86 Championship, but it went very well there. But we've gone back to our classic double foul rolling start, and they'll be held up to the green flag, at which we go racing. Each driver has one fast repair available, and they shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 18 or more instant points. Now, if we do have a major instant during the race start, a safety car may be deployed at the discretion of the racing stewards. Otherwise, the safety car shall not be deployed during the race at any point. So it's only if we have an instant at the start, which ends up seeing the road blocked to 34 or 5 cars in a major instant coming together into the opening quarter, for example. Indeed, you only need to look back to the 1996 Belgian Grand Prix to see something like that, albeit that was in the rain. And I do believe rain is in the forecast for 2024 of iRacing, but don't quote me on that. But without further ado, that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We now head back to circuit side here, ladies and gentlemen, and well, as our drivers get themselves set, we look to a couple of them making the way on around, including Logan McKenzie in the Alpha Touring Chain Gold car, and definitely absolutely gleaming at gold there as he makes his way onto the Kemmel Straight. And we'll be saying hello to a good number of you there in the respective YouTube and Twitch chats. And well, we say hello to Logan McKenzie, who says hand covering eyes there. And well, I think absolutely excited, but at the same time nervous about seeing this broadcast today. Also, Yambag Johnson there in the YouTube chat, who says dope and glad to hear you enjoyed yourself there, Johnson. We also say hello to Piosco there, and glad to hear you're doing that well, Piosco. And I'm doing it very well, thank you. Albeit I would prefer it in the United Kingdom if it wasn't 30 plus degrees right now in this commentary booth, for the simple reason it is sweltering hot, but still we carry on, and that's not going to detract from a fantastic day of racing here. And speaking of the weather, it's only appropriate that we show you what the weather is like currently circuit side here. And as we can see right now for our drivers, it's 26 degrees centigrade ambient temperature and 39 degrees centigrade track temperature, and that is pushing the temperature to a dangerous point there in terms of the circuit. Is really going to start to fight those tyres, and tyre degradation could be something that our drivers need to be wary of. And the fact we've got a 30-minute race coming up, and all the tyres will start to go off in those final 5 minutes if they're not managed properly. And from speaking to a couple of drivers in the build-up to this season, they were saying even in these sprint races they were having to be careful about the tyres. Even in cooler conditions, they seem to start to struggle in the final 10 minutes of racing if they will push hard early on. As McKenzie there getting it wrong, coming out of Stavlo too, and were a nasty knock to the tyre barrier there, and hopefully won't be making that mistake in qualifying, as we do look to the man of the moment in the AM class last season, Samuel Bernardi for Rockefeller Racing Red, as he makes his way out of Stavlo too, and not quite ending up with the same place as we saw McKenzie there, but the AM driver definitely the favourite for this season based on his recent run of form. We'll say hello there to Jizen Hai in the Twitch chat, who's saying, oh yeah, Saturday action at Spa, and glad to hear it, Jizen Hai, that you're on board with us, and we'll also enjoyed at week 13 of iRacing in the schedule. We'll also say hello to Jason Landry there in the YouTube chat, also to June in the YouTube chat, so it's time to get radical. Indeed, it is time for us to radicalise things here on the circuit. And we also say hello there to Max Leapwater 80, who says no more race control for him, and indeed it will. He sacrificed a lot of his time last season to be in race control, albeit we're very grateful for that, but he's not doing it this season. And as we see John Kroom there for Rockefeller Racing Gold parking up, deciding to make his way back to the pit lane. Well, here is Rockefeller Racing Green car, Avon Dorsey, which does have the fastest time on our time standings at the moment. I believe that may be an error given the fact that he's had a track limit infringement, a sizable one, because to be almost 20 seconds faster than everybody else currently, well, I don't quite believe that's the ticket there as he makes his way on down. In fact, I think that's 20 minutes faster. I should say that's definitely an error on our timer, but it's Milan Harris who's currently the fastest driver in this final practice session, as our drivers get themselves set here with only 10 seconds to go before we begin that transition into qualifying. And we'll given the fact we have got that transition coming up very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, and we see Harris there having a little bit of exchange here with one of his teammates. We're going to briefly step away, we'll transition to qualifying, and we'll be right back in the next 30 seconds. So it is time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and well, without further ado, the first drivers who will be taken to the field this season to put in their first flying laps in anger will be our AMs. Now you may be sat there wondering, why did we briefly have to step away for a moment in order to transition from practice to qualifying? Well, when we are looking back at an iRacing replay file, which is how we do these post-round broadcasts, every so often when we have that natural transition from practice to qualifying, what we can have happen is the replay file will actually glitch out for our timing software, and suddenly we get all the qualifying times appear on the timing tally, the final qualifying times, and we don't want any spoilers, of course. I can tell you one thing, I've done everything I can to avoid any spoilers in the middle of the pack racing at League Discord all week, although it's tempting to find out how things have gone, and I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't even know what happened in practice, let alone in qualifying or the race, so therefore it's going to be, as we said earlier, as close as possible to the raw live action for you. And as all of our AMs make the way now, they've got 7.5 minutes, and well, what can we expect in this qualifying session is the big question you may be asking. Well, I think the key thing we can expect here today is the fact that you've not got long to set a lap. With the lap time around here coming in the region of about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, it means you only effectively have 3 laps on the board following your out lap, and therefore our drivers will have to think about the gamble they've got to make, as we see Nicholas Feller making its way down through corner. And that gamble is you go for 2 warm-up laps in terms of your out lap plus an extra 1 lap, as we see a bit of a drift there from Brendan Melly, and I believe they're getting it slightly wrong as he came through the corner, indeed just rejoining there, having to very sensibly bring the car back into speed in the Martini Mobile. A classic twist there on the Williams Racing Machinery livery, I do believe, as he makes his way on around there and up towards Stavlo 1. Well, if you get those tyres in the zone early, you might be able to take a shot at an initial flying lap, whereas I think some drivers will opt to try and do 2 warm-up laps to get the tyres fully set up. The risk with that, of course, is you lose a lap in terms of the laps available to you in order to get the ultimate time on the board. So therefore, if you go for a 2-lap approach in qualifying, you get 1 banker lap and then 1 ultimate pace lap, whereas if you go for a 3-lap approach, you can have a very slow banker lap and improved lap, and then your ultimate pace lap in the final one. As all the drivers roar their way up towards the bus stop chicane. We'll keep in mind as well, we do have the consideration of slipstream being a huge factor in these cars, in the fact that these cars in their own right are very aerodynamic, but if you can tuck in behind another one of them, particularly on the Kemmel Straight, alternatively making your way out of Stavlo 2 into Francorchamps, well, the speed you're going to gain will be in the value of about 3 to 4 miles an hour, and that can gain you at least 2-3 tenths on an individual straight. But as he makes his way on down and all the way up towards turn number 1, and I think that we can hear a number you saying about potentially turning the cars down slightly in terms of the volume of them, and we'll see what we can do about that in due course, ladies and gentlemen. And the fact that as the drivers have made their way on around here, we are looking at slight, and I believe we may be able to make that now. And do let us know if the audio levels do need changes. We have made some slight tweaks there. These V8 powered machines, as we said earlier, 380 horsepower out of the box with a 650 kilogram chassis married to them, and also on top of that, when you add the driver in, it's no more than about 725 kilograms of mass driver weight, depending on how much fuel you put in the car. It does mean you've got a very lightweight mid-engine rear-wheel drive machine that likes to slide about the circuit from left to right, particularly on direction change, and bring it all together. Well, it's a wonderful combination. It's why the Radical has proven so popular, and even though this car has actually been superseded by the Radical SR8, which has gone back to a V6 engine, a Ford EcoBoost 2.3 litre engine, albeit with aerodynamic refinement, getting better top end speeds and also better lap times compared to the Radical SR8. Well, a V8, you can't quite go wrong with a V8 compared to any other engine, and I believe that's a bit of an American saying, but I think around the world, the naturally aspirated V8 is definitely a dying breed in the world of cars to an extent, albeit manufacturers like Lexus keep it on going, and indeed Radical Engineering here partnering that V8 engine. In fact, one of their own made V8 engines. They haven't bought it off another company, they've made it themselves in their factory in Leicestershire. But enough talking about British engineering, and now we come on to what is at the end of the first flying laps on our drives around here. And at the very front of the field, we do have the 2 Rockefeller racing cars here, including in the second position of the 2 of them, Keith Wilfred, as he makes his way up. I believe tucked in behind Samuel Bernardi there, as Bernardi's going to lead the field on around. And what I think for Bernardi, his thought process will be in the fact that he's got his teammate right behind him at the moment, and they'll probably do a bit of an drivers on around there. I do apologise if the audio is suddenly peaked there for you, as we have just got some adjustments being made in the background. but we have now fixed those adjustments there and won't be hearing any more audio spikes whatsoever as our drivers now make the way in to La Source here, and well, will we get some lap times aboard? In fact, I think the timeline has been set on the exit of La Source corner today for these qualifying laps rather than being on the start finish straight where Formula 1 now kicks off racing. So therefore, as our drivers make the way on through, what we can see, well, it's going to be, I do believe, an early pole position from Devoir in a 2:16.050. He's at 400 faster than Braden Melling, and then we do have Vitchuk only a further 2.5 hundredths behind. So as all the drivers make the way on down, it does look as though these times right now all started to stagger together, but very close initially in this qualifying session. And meanwhile, we do have Stephen Charlotte going towards the end of their first flying lap, and well, as we see him make his way across the line, what's it going to be here for the number 219 driver? It's P9 thus far on a 2:16.644. So drivers starting to make their way now on to their second flying laps, and more drivers still to complete their laps, including Kevin Manning here, who as he makes his way up towards the source corner, he's decided to go a bit later in this qualifying session by comparison, as he heads on through and into the braking zone here for turn number 1, looking to do everything he can right first time around. But will he be able to find that time? That's the big question for as he heads to the timeline. And well, we're going to jump on board with him for a flying lap as well as he takes us around the Spa circuit. Staying up towards turns 1 and 2 here, Radion into Radion and going through the left into right and then back into left hand here, balancing the throttle in 6th gear as he now powers his way flat out all the way down the Kemble straight through the kink there and bring the car over to the left hand side to open up the run into the Lecombe chicane. Now it's a bit of a waiting point at the moment in terms of looking for his brake mark. He'll look to his left hand side and brake at the start of the entry curve there. In fact, braking a little bit later, coming all the way down the 3rd gear, right into left, balance the throttle, keep the car to the left now to open up turn number 6 as he comes on through, and as he exits the right hand and now down the hill in towards the Rivage corner. Heading onto the brakes here and going down the gearbox all the way down to 2nd gear and having to wait, keep waiting, and then eventually get the throttle in as he now makes his way over to the right to go into its corner. Sharp left-hander here, making sure not to take too much apex curve as he comes on down, and then heading up towards the boom corner turns 10 and 11. As he heads into the braking zone here, braking as late as possible and staying in 6th initially, but dropping the 5th to keep the rotation in the car, cause the rear of the car to lift up on the downshift. He comes out to left hand and now down towards turn number 12, going in to the Fender chicane, onto the brakes here, trail braking in, gently coming down that gearbox to 3rd gear to rotate the car in, keep it nice and tight to the apex curve, then going through a left-hander, and now up towards Stablo 1 onto the brakes here, while the lowest speed corners on this middle section of the circuit, as he wraps up sector 2, now going in to Stablo 2, flat out all the way through the right-hander, absolutely pinpoint precision there from Manning, as he makes his way now up towards Blanchimont, powering his way up the gearbox here into 6th gear once again, and as he charges all the way in towards the left-hander, getting himself set up now. Let's listen. No sign of a lift there whatsoever, full commitment in 6th gear and heading all the way towards the bus stop chicane at 148 miles an hour on the brakes there, all the way down the gearbox to 1st gear, up and shifting to 2nd briefly, and then going through at the left-hander to complete what will be at the standard lap of the Grand Prix, but we've still got one more corner to go in the form of La Source, going up towards turn number 19. As he makes his way into the braking zone here, braking about 75 metres from corner apex down to 2nd gear, nicely in, loads up the left-hand side tyres of the car and powers out, and well, it's going to be our final flying lap in terms of before overtime is taken into account from Kevin Manning. As he cross line, he goes P11 now at a 2:16.639, a nice lap there from him as he now brings the car to a rest, and will meanwhile, whilst he parks the car on up, we still have got some other AM drivers trying to squeeze in one more lap here, as the fact they do have overtime in effect now, and well, with the Anfield being split, meanwhile we have got our pros and pro-ams heading on around there, and in fact I think it will be for our AM drivers as soon as they finish these laps to immediately get off the circuit. They may have to park up and tow off circuit, as well right now we do look to what is Keith Wilfred, who has got Samuel Bernardi with him. I think that Wilfred goes a bit wide there. Bernardi's going to go up the inside, and Wilfred, before they even got to what was going to be the left-hander of Blanchimont, well, I think releasing what Bernardi into a position. We'll have to wait and see what implications that got in terms of the fact I think Bernardi right now in P6 versus Wilfred in P4. They're trying to get both cars there up onto the 2nd row of the grid in the M+. Will they be able to do so? That's the big question. Meanwhile, we do have behind Nicholas Vella also making some haste here in the blue-black machine on the left-hand side of your picture in the middle. and as he comes on through the source, and a bit of an exchange there, I do believe, another Witcher as he steps aside, so therefore he's not on a hot lap anymore, and he comes into the pits. But meanwhile, do we see any improvement for anyone? Witcher comes to the line, he does not improve, so that is going to be your qualifying session done and dusted. Albeit Mark Senegal's going to try and creep in a lap right at the end here. He's got P15 and he improves to P11 now, 2:16.552. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we immediately now turn our attentions to the primes and the pros. It's now the second half of this qualifying session, and well, speaking of which, we see Hendricks making his way on through here. Sammy Hendricks, new debutant to the middle of the pack racing at League for this season of racing, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on in the 107 in the prime class. He makes his way up towards the final two major corners here of the bus stop chicane and going into that braking zone, as we have already got quite a few pros and primes on 2 laps. But Hendricks just gradually bring the car on through here, getting the car nicely set up, and the marker has been set by what is Nicholas Feller at 2:15.340 to be in the AM class in terms of overall time. And just a reminder, we do not segregate the field based on class when it comes to gridding for the race. So how they line up on that left-hand side of your screen, that timing tower, will be how they are going to line up on the grid. So if we see an AM driver qualify inside the top 10 in terms of all those overall times, they will be in the grid in that position in terms of inside the top 10. And that's why it really is a big theme for our drivers here. There's no points for finishing ahead of where's drivers of another class, albeit there's bragging rights, of course, if you're an AM and you do beat a good number of the primes, but you've got to be careful of the fact that you may get promoted to the prime class before we do get to the end of the first cup of the season, because we do have our cups, and indeed I should say our classes as provisional currently. They always do have some adjustment on the fly in the first rounds of the season, but the point being, the only bonus points that are available this season will be to our podium finishers in both the Pro-Am and also the AM classes, where it's free for first place on top of the points you would score naturally, and also on top of that what would be 2 for second place and then 1 for third place, and what points are scored overall in terms of your overall finishing position on the grid, but those are scored at respective to your class there. So if you're the winner in the AM class and you finish P5 in the overall versus the driver who finishes P12 overall, who's second in the AM class come the end of it, well, you score points in your overall position, and then you'll get the bonus points for those podium finishing positions. Hopefully you made that quite clear. If not, we'll definitely explain it better next time. But as we do see Hendrick make his way on down, we then look to Dominic Ford as we see them making their way out of Blanchemont and up towards the bus stop chicane, and a very colourful Hot Wheels livery there. And indeed, some would say this is a bit of a Hot Wheels car in terms of how it looks, and you go into your local toy store. Particularly when I was a youngster and pick out one of these cars off of the shelf, and back then in 2005 what was the beginnings of the Radical SR8, and we just moved on from the Radical SR3 if my memory serves me correctly. But he comes on down now into the source here. Well, a bit of an argy-bargy moment here with one of the other cars. I do believe that's the number 16. He's having a bit of a tussle with in the form of Jake Goodson, and well, these two trying to work around one another at the moment. I don't think they'll be too grateful for stepping on one another's toes, but that's what happens in qualifying when you do have to try and hunt for slipstream, in the fact that you will end up stepping on the toes of another driver, and that could prove incredibly painful when it comes to the fact if you end up impeding another driver. We've got a car going the wrong way there, and I believe that may have been Hendricks getting it wrong, going out of what was coming out of Radion onto the Campbell Straight, the car bouncing around. But meanwhile, the driver made the way down forward here right now, being slipstreamed past by none other than Goodson, and well, it's going to be Ford who goes directly on into the barrier, goodness me, and not a way for Ford to go, and will miss their braking point, alternatively brake failure, either way a nasty smash to the wall. But meanwhile, we do look to the Red Bull machine, absolutely energised there by the energy drink, and that is in the form of Lee Porter. I do wonder whether Red Bull's an energy drink that he absolutely loves, or whether he just went in for the sponsors here today. But he comes on down in towards turn number 5 going into Les Combes. Oh, he's got a bit of traffic behind him here, all eager to try and hang in the toe of his car, and they'll be looking to do everything they can to try and follow him on through here and gain a bit more lap time. In terms of those lap times that are now starting to seep into the mix, it does look as though in particular it is going to be Milan Harris who is the fastest driver out there at the moment, albeit it should be pointed out that is in terms of the overall position and also what will be the potential pole position in the pro class. But then we do have a sizable cut of AM drives there from P5 all the way to P9 in the form of Feller through to Whitchurch, who definitely have found themselves splitting into the field currently. And as our drivers continue to charge, it does mean that right now the emphasis is on a lot of our primes to try and find a bit more pace out there. So it does seem as though Southern may be struggling at this point in time, including the likes of what is here Charles Hussey, as we see him making his way on grid Stablo 2, and the rear of the car kicks out. He just catches in time, but then the gravel trap there causes allows the car to bounce onto the runoff tarmac, and he ends up losing the car. And what a very unfortunate moment there from Horsey, but he won't want to make that mistake again, and he'll learn it from that one. But the problem is that's going to scupper this lap, and he'll only have one more lap available to him if he can creep round in time in order to get to what will be the start-finish line going out of La Source and on the run into Rouge and Radion. So therefore very up against it right now, as we do see some new laps coming to the board, and John Kroom is just at the fastest lap this session, but Mick Hendricks goes faster. Francois Schink goes even faster than that at 2:14.390. Those lap times are now pouring on in, and we've also got some more times coming from other drivers, including Adam J. Ballard here, as we do see the Rockefeller Racing Green Giant making the way to the line. Can he find a way to improve? He's improved in all the sectors so far from P21 overall. It's going to be P9 then. Come Brian pole sitter is Ballard, now pushing the AMs to the bottom end of the top 10 and downwards, but we still do have one more lap on the board for a good number of our pros and prams as the checker flag comes out. But remember, overtime is now in effect, whereby our pros and prams are allowed to finish the lap they're on. They've got to do it before they find themselves at the end of the mercy of how much overtime's given. It normally will be 3 minutes of overtime before everybody is pushed back into the pit boxes, and then they make their way onto the grid to go racing. But as we can see here, right now Ballard trying to go even faster behind one of his teammates, I think following Speaker on around. But meanwhile we look to Mike Young as he comes on down there through X corner. He's currently P18, what is P4 in the prime class, and I think his focus right now will be on just trying to find a bit more time to try and edge ahead against Samuel Cran and also Ilya Speaker. And well, as Young makes his way on through, he is in a very strong company in terms of the rivals he's up against there. And well, Speaker and Kren, both drivers were contesting the cups in the GR86 Championship in the prime class, missing out on a number of occasions but still giving it everything they could. But as we do look to our driver here, Young, he makes his way down into Stablo 1, and from him, one of the fastest drivers on circuit right now, in fact the fastest driver of everybody right now on this final lap. You're looking at him, Mika Hendricks here, the number 73 driver coming in towards Blanchimont shortly. And as he comes around, can he find a bit more time? He does have a couple of cars ahead of him, albeit they're too far away to give him a tow. So if Hendricks is going to get this done, it will all be done on his own impetus. And to be fair, some drivers prefer that in terms of qualifying, to do things in clear air and not use the tow of another car. When he makes his way through the bus stop chicane, it'll then be La Source, where it can be all made or lost. There's a bit of oversteer there as he comes out the corner, having to feather the throttle in order to catch the car just in time and making his way in towards La Source. What can he do here? As we are hearing the Speaker behind is also improving, so is Jordan Butler just in front. Well, Butler will be the first driver to come on through, and then it'll be Hendricks. And as they do, we see it, Speaker goes up to P7, Butler to P2. But what about Hendricks? He comes on through. Is it going to be enough? No, it's not. Hendricks does not improve at the end of the lap. Speaker and Butler improve so far. De Vries moves up to P25 overall. We've also seen Young move up to P14, and James Logston has come out of nowhere and shattered the ceiling when it comes to lap time at 2:14.327. 600ths faster than Francois Schink. But remember, it's hundredths that are the difference between pole and second here. It's not temps, and still we've got more cars to come on through. And I think our final car coming through, we see as he comes to line. He goes P11 down to 2:15.073. Landry improves to 14.620. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've only got Tanner Dibble from DNA Motorsport to complete the lap, and qualifying will be complete. And as he makes his way up towards the timeline here, well, what's it going to be? Well, in fact, he comes into the pit lane. It's not an improvement for DNA Motorsport driver. It's P26 at best for Dibble, and that's a dismal way to start of his championship. But meanwhile, it will be overall pole going to James Logston provisionally until we transition to the grid to have confirmation of that. And then we can see in the prime class it is going to be Ilya Speaker who starts P8 on the overall grid, and in the AM class it will be Nicholas Feller who on his debut takes pole position in the AM class, P15 overall. A fantastic achievement there from Nicholas Feller. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is now complete, and we have the pleasure of seeing that John Kroom's car parked up there on the exit coming out of Rouge into Radion. And well, we are now just waiting for that transition to go racing for the first time this season. Well, it's great to see so many of you absolutely get invested here, and in particular we see in the YouTube chat and say hello to Eric Logston, who says they look like big go-karts, these cars, and I can definitely see your point. Also seeing the feedback there from a number of you, including from Jan-Bag Johnson and also from Jason Landry about the microphone volume, and hopefully that's been improved now. But meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, we head to the grid, and this is how our drivers line up for the first round of the season. It is James Logston who takes pole position for Bearpote by 600ths over Francois Schink for AlphaTauri Change Silver. Behind them, it's Bearpote Zero's Peter Lowe and Jordan Butler for DNA Motorsports, with row 3 going to Mika Hendricks at ATC Gold, joined by Sunday GT Turtles Jason Landry. On row number 4, it'll be John Kroom for Rockefeller Racing Gold, joined by teammate and prime pole sitter of Ilya Speaker. We then do have completing the top 10 at Milan Harris for Rockefeller Racing Gold and the privateer of Alan Lahr. We then have on row number 6, I should say, Avon Dorsey for Rockefeller Racing Green, best the rest, just ahead of Alpha Touring Change Gold's Logan McKinsey. And on row number 7, it'll be Adam J. Ballard for Rockefeller Racing Green and the privateer, the AM privateer of Nicholas Feller, and he is your AM pole sitter. Braden Mellin starts P15 there, the privateer in the AM class, ahead of James Kingsbury, the Flavour Station Racing driver, who's new to the grid for this season, and well done to him for 3rd place in qualifying in class. With Mike Young, reverse grid racing driver, starting off the 9th row of the grid, joined by Keith Reelfred for Rockefeller Racing Red. We now have Dan Vitchuk starting P19 there, rounding up the top 20 ahead of Samuel Bernardi, who starts P20 for Rockefeller Racing Red. And then we do have Samuel Crown, who starts P21 there on the 11th row of the grid, the privateer. In fact, from Bear Pope, I should say, he's not a privateer. And then we have at middle of the pack Racing's Jermaine Warren starting P22. Now on the 12th row of the grid, it's Lee Porter for middle of the pack, ahead of Bear Pope Zero's Ian Henneberry. And then we have on row at number 13 the pair of Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports and Jake Gertson for Reverse Grid Racing. Now on row number 14, it's Jay DeVries, and alongside the Reverse Grid Racing driver is Bear Pope's Sammy Hendricks. With the top 30 being completed on row 15 by John Lauzon for ATC Silver and Dustin DeVar for Flavour Station Racing. Now on row number 16, it's Tim Chong for Slipstream Softs, who's joined by Charles Hussey for Rockefeller Racing Green. And then we have David Turn starting P33 for Slipstream Softs, who starts alongside Sunday GT Turtles. Mark Senegal starts P34. Kevin Manning and Stephen Chalafu are on the 18th row of the grid for Photon Klang and the privateer outfit respectively. And then we do have, Nick Yakubov starting P37 ahead of Dominic Ford, Slipstream Softs ahead of Photon Klang. With then Bearpoint Zero's Billman DaCosta P39 ahead of Photon Klang's Jesse Jemison Jr. Now Glenn Bratton and Nick Bader line up on the 21st row of the grid, and the 22nd and final row of the grid is JR Davies and Roger Ganesh. And well, that completes your order, ladies and gentlemen, but we are only moments away from going green flag racing here for the first time this season, and it's to James Logston to take us to green flag racing. And when he does, we've got 30 minutes of racing at the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Place your bet, who's going to be the winner come the end of it and get the season off to a flying start? Well, Logston makes his way along the kink here, and we now just wait the green flag. And it's lights out and away we go for our first race of the season. It's side by side up the hill into turns 1, 2, 3 and 4. And as Logston lose out there versus Shink as they make the way through the right-hander. Well, it's not too big of a loss here given the fact it's the Kemmel Straight coming up, but all the drives charged away and through. Absolutely blistering pace. We've got a couple of cars getting it wrong further on back. A car going around, I think that's Charles Hosey, and also I believe contact there with what was John Lauzon and Ian Henneberry. But meanwhile, as they all scuttle and shuffle their way down the Kemmel Straight, we look back to your leaders here, Francois Shink and James Logston. Logston's up the inside of Shink to retake the lead of the race, going into Les Combes, and as they weave their way through now, going on down towards the large corner at turn number 7, where everyone will start to go line astern to a brief moment as they come down to the heavy braking zone. You can see a peak there from Jordan Butler, but meanwhile further down the order we look to Lee Porter, but just in front you can also see a battle there between Dan Richard and Braden Melling, but Lee Porter defending hard on the inside versus Samuel Bernardi, who's had one of the slower starts of the season as they come down towards Ix, and into left hand they go. And well, meanwhile we've got Bernardi and Dibble battling here, and Dibble gets it wrong, taps through Bernardi's car and contact there, as we believe that is Sammy Hendricks, who's been able to avoid the worst of it, but further contact further back. Stephen Chalafu also getting picked up there in the contact, and it's absolute chaos there coming out of Vic's corner, and an unfortunate incident for Dibble has led to a domino effect as they all try to regain the cars. But meanwhile we look from them to Kevin Manning, the Photon Klang drivers capitalise on the situation as he comes on down the hill here. Will everyone immediately to a safety car? I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, a safety car has been called for the major incidents we've seen at the start of this race, so therefore the field will be slowing down to a degree, unless I'm very much mistaken, which I may be. In fact, I am mistaken. I think everyone is running at full pace right now. It just looks though from the camera angle we might have had a safety car, but not to be. In fact, we are continuing the racing as they charge their way on through Blanchimont. Well, right now James Logston, your race leader, continues to pull away as he makes his way up towards the boss stop chicane. As he comes down to the braking zone, well, I do believe Lee Porter there in at the Twitch chat saying safety car confirmed, so we might see a safety car yet coming out onto lap number 2, so we'll have to wait for that confirmation, ladies and gentlemen. But meanwhile, James Logston makes his way towards the end of the open lap. He's got one more quarter to go before that. All the drivers are racing right now as they make their way on down. In fact, as they stack their way in to Blanchimont corner, I think that's all the confirmation we need that we do in fact have a safety car there, as everyone now making their way slowly on down into the braking zone here for the bus stop chicane for the first time asking, and no overtakes to be made. And in fact they have to go full speed to catch up to the pace car, as we just had it clarified there, and J.R. Davies there making sure not to let what is, I do believe, Aaron Lark make an overtake on him. But we do have a safety car in effect and therefore we are now going to be under safety car conditions for a brief moment as we look to the front of the field here, and where you can see the split in the field and the instance we've had on that open lap, how the field has become separated as a result. Now, in terms of how this affects the race, it does mean that we lose race time here. You can see the clock in the top center of your screen. We are now already 3 minutes in, and however long we spend behind the safety car, that is taken out of the race time. So if we resume after what is 5 minutes being behind the safety car, well, you do the mathematics, we still got 23 minutes of racing effectively to go. But we'll have to wait and see as everybody comes on down. But I think a bit of field shuffling going on further down the order as we look further back now. I think a lot of our AM drivers here trying to pick who was the leader in their battles before they came under the influence of the safety car. It's a bit of a to me to you here in the fact I think some of them argue, well, I was ahead of you before this corner, I was ahead of you before that corner, we were side by side, when was it called? But they'll be given automated instructions by the auto race steward in iRacing to say the fact that they do need to essentially line up in a particular order, and it will be single file the restart, I do believe, when we do go green flag racing. But with that safety car and 44 drivers in attendance here, there's only one car currently in the pit lane that is still being serviced, and that's in the form of Jesse Jameson Jr.'s car for Votang Klang. But otherwise, everybody else right now is in this pack, so everybody is on the lead lap -1 car, and right now getting themselves set and ready to go once again. But we should point out the fact that we can only go racing when we do get to the start finish line and the safety car is peeled off, and it will be a single file restart there. And when our drivers do go green flag racing once again, well, you can imagine now those who perhaps didn't push the car too hard early on will feel as though they've had more time to conserve the tyres, and therefore they may have an opportunity to really think about protecting the car even further. Whereas other drivers will also be thinking, as we see Dominic Ford, they're getting a bit too forward with regards to looking up the inside of Hendricks and Cran. I think they're forward just trying to get some heat in the tyres before backing off, and given that the place is back. And I think Dominic Ford very eager to make some progress here. And in fact, it should be pointed out that the biggest gainers since the start of this race, we show you in terms of overall gainers here on the left-hand side of your screen, and Ford is the biggest gainer on 14 places gained since the start, moving from what was P38 on the grid up to P24. So Ford having an absolutely stellar start, 4 places gained in class as well, in the Pro-Am class. So Ford right now eager to make more. But meanwhile, in terms of our biggest losers at the start of today, as we look on further down the order there, our biggest loser being Aaron Lahr, in fact losing 26 places overall, 2 in the Pro class. So Aaron Lahr definitely having a difficult day at the standings thus far, but still plenty of time to go, and he'll know that, number 47 driver. But as they all wind the way on through here, given the fact that the lap is so long, it does mean we lose a lot of time behind the safety car. And again, keep in mind the safety car is driven to a defined pace. I do believe it's somewhere in the region around 60 to 70 kilometres now, so that translates in practice to approximately at 40 to 50 miles an hour. And our drivers won't be too pleased about the fact the safety car is actually going quite slowly, as we do see there a rear wing that's definitely out of shape. I believe that's on the car of Ian Henneberry, and that rear wing definitely not looking at the most appropriate angle on the car. But as they all now begin to group up here, well, the field definitely being brought down to a standstill as they make their way in towards Blanchement, and this is in preparation for the restart of the race. As we look to the front of the field, and well, those are lights on the safety car right now still going, and hopefully they will switch off by the time we get up towards La Source corner. So that way, that will tell us that the safety car will be in at the end of the lap. As they make the way on through here, you can see the cones there blocking off the Grand Prix entry. And we'll keep in mind, if it's a 24-hour endurance race around here, the full pit lane is in use, so it starts there and ends all the way on the exit of Radion. But we haven't quite subjected our drivers to that here today. We've got the more conventional classic pit lane as they head up towards the final corner. Those lights still on the safety car, and could we be in for another lap behind the safety car? Which, if so, well, as our drivers make their way on through, it will mean that we're going to probably restart with 20 minutes of racing to go, which then does really turn this into a short sprint, and it may also in fact give our drivers an opportunity to push their cars a little bit harder when it comes to the tyre life around here. As we said earlier, we're expecting the tyres to really struggle in the final 10 minutes, but if you are behind the safety car for 10 minutes of the race, or practically 10 minutes of the race, we see the lights off there from the safety car. So therefore I think at the end of this lap we will see the safety car coming in, but definitely quite a bit of time being brought in, and it will mean our drivers will be able to absolutely go all in when we do go green flag racing. The remainder, Samuel Cran into the pit lane, interestingly enough, so I believe they may have an issue with the car. Let's go drop him all the way to the back of the field. We do have Jameson Jr. out on circuit right now, and here is Jesse Jameson Jr., the aforementioned driver from the United States of America, making his way on through tunnel of St. Right now he's trying to play the game of catch up to see how far he can get onto the back of the field before they do go green flag racing. He has a whole lap to do it, but keep in mind here he'll have to drive it fast as he possibly can without making any mistakes. And he's got cold tyres to warm up, but he will have a good opportunity here to warm those tyres up, but I suspect he may be about half a lap behind by the time we do go green flag racing. as he heads on down in towards Pullen Corner. We'll keep in mind here in the fact that Jameson Jr. right now, as we did see in the previous season of racing, when he did have those difficult days, he still made sure to finish each and every race, and that's what it's all about. When it goes wrong, still get to the end, take that checkered flag, because it puts your name in the raffle pot immediately, so long as you complete at least enough laps to not be more than 5 laps behind the race winner. And on top of that as well, just by getting to that checkered flag, there is that feeling of satisfaction that you made it despite it all. And as he heads on through, we look back to the field, and in particular we look to the car of James Kingsbury here, the Flavour Station racing driver, who has lost 1 place in class since the start of this race and 1 place overall. And well, he's very accommodated right now by the fact he's got Keith Wilfred behind him, and in front of him here has got Dan Vitchuk, and well, he will have had a bit of a rival and a bit of a scrap with them on the open lap. We got to see them in the drag race down the Kemmel Straight. Indeed, many a free wide coming on down there, but he'll be looking to get the restart as best as possible. But again, given the fact it's a single file restart, that will be in the minds of our drivers, in the fact that therefore they've got to try and position themselves well in terms of return to full pace as quickly as possible when we do go green flag racing. And that's the thing, when you're right at the front of the field, if you're James Logsdon, you know exactly when you're going to go, and therefore you can really try to dupe the rest of the field into falling behind you. Meanwhile, if you're somebody like James Kingsbury or Braden Melling, you've got to try and predict it right, and if you get it right, you'll get a launch on the car in front of you, but you get it wrong, however, and you end up falling back into the car behind you, and then you become vulnerable. As he makes his way on through here and up towards what is the right to left of the French chicane. Well, not too far away now. We are only a third of a lap of the way from the restart here, ladies and gentlemen. I suspect we will have still about 19 minutes plus also the final lap of racing to go. And I tell you one thing, it may have been a very eventful start, and we have had to have a safety car called, but again, it's all in the manner of bringing our field back together and making sure everybody can go green flag racing, because that's what we want to see at the end of the day. But also, let me reassure you this is going to be an absolute firecracker when we go racing. It'll be 19 minutes of racing. Our drivers will have not been able to use their tyres for the last 2 laps under safety car conditions, so it's all going to be about who is going to get the tyres up to temperature again as quickly as possible, and then who is going to be brave enough to make the moves early on, and who can push those tyres all the way to the limit straight away. And as our drivers make the way on down, we do look to the blimp camera here, and will James Logsdon just right now staying a little bit further back of the safety car here as much as he's allowed to. I think trying to buy himself some breathing room in order to start getting himself set up. You can see all the field now, no more side to side or in terms of bobbing and weaving on the brakes. Indeed, they've got to run to a defined pace, but they do have a little bit of room to manoeuvre. And the safety car lights are off, so we will be going green flag racing at the end of this lap, and we are only 3 corners away. In fact, Jameson Jr. is about to catch up to the field, in fact. Given he's making his way through Stavlo 1 and Stavlo 2, it's going to work out. It'll probably be about 10 seconds off the field, but I think Jameson Jr. will be within arm's reach of getting back in the fight, particularly if some drivers end up squabbling right at the back of the field. So that's great news for the Photon Clang driver, but right now all the field makes the way towards the source, and well, its radicals are plenty, and 380 brake horsepower in each. It does mean that if you do a bit of quick mathematics there, we are going to be looking at the best part of what is approximately 15,500 horsepower, getting ready to go green flag racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. And as Logsdon makes his way into the final corner, well, it's now for him to dictate us to the green. It's time for the restart, no longer in the safety car conditions. It's lights out and away we go once again, 19 minutes remaining, and Logsdon gets a good start, but look at this from Peter Lowe as they go side by side up the hill. The Bear Pope Zero driver trying to go round the outside of Butler, but they're still side by side as they make the way onto the Kemmel Straight. Rest of the field now starts to come together. There's been an instant further back. I believe that may be between multiple cars in the form of Dan Vitchuk and also Braden Melling, but we stay here focused on the front. Lowe's trying to go round the outside. Hendricks also getting into the mix behind with Landry creeping in as they make their way into the braking zone. It's 3-4 wide as they come on down, but now 2 by 2 they go. Lowe's not backing out of this. He wants that outside to inside run. He's going to force the issue. It falls off the curb, but as he does so, contact with the side of Butler's car, but he backs off Hendricks on the inside now. Through goes Hendricks, or does he, as they make their way down towards a large corner as they enter the braking zone. To be Hendricks on the inside. All in he goes. Jason Landry also there watching the Sunday GT Turtles trying to find the space in the inside as Logo's a bit deep there, and Landry now trying to go around the outside of X corner. That's bold to go for it there, and you can see John Kroom now itching to try and get involved in this fight as Landry does get a nose ahead of Lowe, but Lowe's on the inside on the right. Your picture as they come down. Meanwhile behind we see Eamon Dorsey and Ilan Speaker battling for position in the lead of the Prime class, but it looks as though Landry does get a nose ahead there as they come on around, holding the speed as they make the way on through, but still side by side as they come up into the Fangers chicane. And well, this is a top 5 position right here, but Lowe has to back out and was looking to be an adventurous move for third place, has moved Peter Lowe down to P6 as now he's got a whole pack of cars right behind him. Meanwhile, further back, Sammy Hendricks here battling with James Kingsbury, and Kingsbury trying to get ahead, and Hendricks in fact falling back as Kingsbury cars definitely missing some piece on the front. There's a bit of damage to that front bumper, but it's not preventing him from going racing as they make their way through Stablo 2, and as they charge away and around here and onwards they go. Car running wide, they've got two cars running wide. Eamon Dorsey I think has had a bit of a dismal moment there, and I also believe that might be Young who's got it wrong, but they all come storming up towards Blanchimont corner. Well, now who's going to back out? That's the question. As Dustin Devar looks around the outside there, Mike Young and Jermaine Warren gets both of them done. Warren's going to try and look for the move as well. He can't quite find it, however, as Young digs in as they come down towards the braking zone here. This is all in the battle to try and creep inside the top 20. Well, Devar there being passed on the inside by, I believe, that is Jay De Vries, who goes for one, he goes for two, and De Vries gets them both done. The reverse grid racing driver, well, right now absolutely doing it phenomenally well and making a 2-for-1 special there down to the bus stop chicane. But as they come on down, it's not over yet as Keith Wilfred goes free wide here with also Eamon Dorsey and Jake Gertson. They come through the source and Dorsey comes up through on the inside, but look at this from Wilfred. He cuts back, he's going to try and go all in here for Rockefeller Racing Red, but he can't find it. But meanwhile, Gertson does, and Gertson gets the run in return to move up to P30 as they go on to another lap. Up the hill they go, and as the number 16 car here holds on as best they possibly can, Dorsey and Wilfred just behind. Oh, goodness me, and it's contact with the wall, and I believe that's Jordan Butler who's had haste to the wall there and almost taken off the road. It was one of the Rockefeller Racing Red cars. Nick Jakubov's also been involved in an instant from what I'm hearing in towards the Rouge, but as they make the way down here right now, everybody calming down for a brief moment and will give us a chance to breathe. But meanwhile, we look back up to Ilya Speak here, the prime leader, who right now is staying ahead of Logan McKenzie. And McKenzie trying to find his way on through. I think McKenzie wary of the fact that if he was in the Prime class as well, he'd be battling for the Prime lead, but he's not this season, he's in the Pro class, and right now he wants to go hunting after John Kroom is 1.1 seconds up the road. As they come down to the left-hander, Rick Spend through the left-hander right now is going to be Speaker, who continues to hold the cork in the proverbial bottle and prevent the flow of McKenzie's pace. They come down to the left-hander. Meanwhile, further back as they roar their way on down, what we do see to our drives a bit further back, Jay De Vries here, when he's battling with James Kingsbury. Kingsbury on the inside versus De Vries. They come down through the long left-hander on, and as they do, Lee Porter behind now. I think Lee Porter's starting to struggle with a little bit of damage on the car. Looking up the inside there, more defence rather than offence versus Devar as they come in towards the Vantage chicane, and Devar right now very eager to try and find his way through, but he's got the pressure of Young coming up behind as Young almost goes a bit wide there in the dirt. He had the two cars in front of him, and then you've got Jermaine Warren and David Turn, and they're both itching to get involved in this battle as all the cars storm their way on through it and come towards the end of the first half of this race. Well, now that we look further back, we've also got Tanner Dibble here, and the DNA Motorsports driver's got to try and take some evasive action. He's clipped, however, by the wayward car. I believe that was the car of Tim Chong, unless I'm mistaken, and well, with that it's gone very, very wrong for Tanner Dibble, who's just finding himself in the worst place at the wrong time. Meanwhile, as they make the way on towards Blanchimont corner, side by side, here you'll go with none other than what is Tim Chong goes round the outside. In fact, that was not Chong there who was in contact with. I think it was in fact John Lauzon who was in contact with, and Chong had to take evasive action further back down the order. But meanwhile, from then in Henneberry, locking up on the brakes, ever Bear Pope Zero goes up the inside of Roger Ganesh, and Ganesh loses the place in the AM class, which is P33. Indeed, and now they make the way out towards the source, and as they do, well, these AMs right now absolutely scrapping. There's no holding them back, as now it's going to be a return moving from Ganesh up the inside. Well, will it? No, he will not be. But meanwhile, just in front, that was Curran up the inside of Billman DaCosta and gets another place gain there, as now in Henneberry trying to find his way on through here past Curran. Well, in fact, he's trying to make his way on past DaCosta. In fact, he's overtaking DaCosta and now trying to follow Samuel Curran up the hill as they come on through Rouge and Radio and charging up the hill. They go into the second half of this race now, and everybody absolutely at full canter and tempo here in terms of battling. And well, is there going to be any stopping it? Well, we hope not, as right now Peter Lowe almost getting it wrong. They're coming out to Lecom and down into Ravage corner. He's got Milan Harris right behind him, and Harris keeping him honest as they come down through the right and into left they go, as they make the way in to X-Ben through the left. And well, you can see the top 10, particularly the pros inside the top 10 now, all starting to space out and starting to engage in their own little battles. But meanwhile, further down the field, the Prime and the AM class, it's absolutely bedlam, and to be fair, we absolutely love it. And then there's one pro driver who finds himself in amongst all the mix, but he's trying to escape, and that's the reverse good racing driver Gertson as he heads on through Pearl corner, tucked in the toe Nicholas Feller. And we'll massive mention here to Nicholas Feller in the fact that right now Feller in the lead of the AM class here, and he's leading the AM class by sizable advantage. P16 to the next driver in the form of Samuel Bernardi. He lets Gertson go there, and I think Feller right now is focusing his attention solely on, I need to win in the AM class. I don't need to beat the pros and the primes. I'll get more points if I do it in terms of overall position, position, but do I really need to do it when really I just need to focus on getting a first win on the board? And that's a great philosophy to have as the privateer right now pushes on, and well, by comparison at Bernardi not quite as fast at this time, in fact matching laps but not making progress. But meanwhile, looking back here to Milan Harris versus Peter Lowe as the two of them go side by side through Blanchimont corner. It's Harris ahead of Lowe now as they come down to the braking zone. Butler at the inside of Shink just out of camera. They're going into the bus stop chicane as they come on to the brakes. Well, meanwhile, we've got a car going round there. It's two round, and that is Mika Hendricks in contact with Jason Landry. I think Hendricks may have already been going there, and Landry's found himself being caught up. We caught the tail end of that incident, but Peter Lowe almost getting compromised there as well as Landry going slowly on the left-hand side of your picture. But meanwhile, that releases Peter and Milan Harris up into P4, P5 respectively, as now Jason Landry tries to rejoin, but he rejoins at the bottom end of the top 10. As they come through the source now make their way to Rouge and Radion. This time the drivers all continue to charge on, and well, from them we look a little bit further back down the order to what is Stefan Chalafuris. It's gone very wrong here for both him and the 222 of Tim Chong, both of them round at the bus stop chicane. I wonder if there's been some contact between them. Jermaine Warren also involved in that as we're to understand it, but they seem to have all negotiated it now. Meanwhile, we look here to Bill Da Costa, who finds himself coming out of the source and going quite slowly out the corner. I believe that John Lanson's just found his way around the outside of him, and in fact now it's going to be Jesse Jameson who's also looking for the mover as they make the way up the hill for what is for them now the 7th time of asking. But charging through Jameson Jr. there to squirm out of the way at the last possible moment, and in doing so takes the place, but he may have an automated slowdown for cutting track limits. We'll have to wait and see as they make the way on down, with Jameson absolutely charging away here. Well, I can tell you one thing, he's had a huge boost in the toe, and well, he'll be hoping he doesn't get penalised for that slight cut. As we come down to the braking zone here for Lecom, it's going to be a very deep run. There's contact between Lauzon, I believe, the Martini racing machine of what was, well, it wasn't Ian Henneberry. I think that's Braden Melling he came in contact with, and Lauzon's bad luck continues from last season. You may remember that Lauzon multiple times on course to be on the podium, if not winning in the pro class, only to have bad luck strike him, and that bad luck has followed him again in the Alpha Touring Challenge Silver machine. But meanwhile, as we look from Ian Henneberry to a little bit further up the road, we look up to Mark Senegal, the Sunday GT Turtles driver, who right now P25, when he's been chased by Aaron Lahr, the pro driver, trying to look for his way into the inside. They're going into what is the Fender chicane, can't quite find it at the moment. Instead having to wait his turn as they all nip and tuck their way on through. But as they come up towards Stavlo 1 here, a lot of cars that have got some degree of damage on them, and that'll be in the mind of our drivers right now, particularly if it's aero damage. It's going to cost them the best part of 2 to 3 miles now on the longer straights here as a minimum. And with Senegal here being hunted down very quickly by Aaron Lahr. Lahr's going to look up the inside. This will put on the outside of Blanchimont if they're side by side. Who's going to be the braver of the two of them here? My gut feeling says that Senegal might back out of this, but then again, I don't think he is going to. I think he's going to show here he's not just for decoration as he comes into the corner on that very tight line, clips the apex curve and has to lift off the throttle immediately, otherwise that car would have gone round. And Lahr meanwhile takes the place of P25 overall. But as they come on down into the braking zone, meanwhile Jermaine Warren here in the middle of the pack driver, still pushing on, chasing up Roger Ganesh. He's looking for another place for P29 overall as they make their way in out to the bus stop chicane. And in front you've got J.R. Davies there, and the Rockefeller Racing red car right now, not going too quickly out of the chicane. I think just had a bit of a bad line that time around, but Ganesh not capitalising on it, and they make the way onto their next lap very shortly. As we've got multiple cars in the pit lane. Milan Harrison's the pit, so is Devine. He's come on in, and both of them I think taking repair work to their cars, and we had a lot of smoke up there coming out of the source. And well, I'm not quite sure what the source of all that is, but I can tell you one thing, it's only getting a bit cloudy there, but it is clearing as they make the way on to another lap. Meanwhile, we look from them right back up to the front of the field here, ladies and gentlemen, and this is your top three as they stand. It's James Foxton ahead of Jordan Butler and Francois Schink behind as they come down into Garage Corner, and as they do, we ride on board and look back from the rear of the American leading this race in the former Team Bev, Hopes Logston, and well, his family tuning in today and trying to hold on as long as he can as he makes his way out of it. But Butler is coming on strong here, and the key point being that out of the three of them, Jordan Butler is the fastest of the trio right now by 2/10 on average, albeit you could say he's been aided by the fact he's in the tow, but I wonder if Butler's got an ace up his sleeve. He's now trying to deploy it in terms of his lap pace. But they head in towards the right into left here, the Fender chicane. You have to keep in mind, of course, that Logston was your pole sitter today, and therefore he does feel as though he's got the pace in hand. He takes an absolutely lovely late apex there, going through the second part of the chicane, and therefore able to keep that gap open. But you can see how if he just pushes even slightly too hard here, he does end up going slightly deep, and that costs him a tenth or two in the overall run of the corner. And that's where the pinpoint precision you need in driving these cars really comes into effect. When you miss an apex, even if you miss it by millimetres, let alone inches, you do end up costing yourself a lot of time. And then you've got the toe effect in play, as we do see they're getting closer and closer. It is Butler. Shink still hanging back, and notice that Shink is 3/10 off, and he's not gaining too much yet. I think Francorchamps trying to play the smart game. Meanwhile, Butler getting stuck in. He's going to look around the outside here. James Logsdon goes early on the brakes. Butler goes all in, outside to inside here. Too wide to go into the final apex. Logsdon closes it down, gives Butler the space to breathe, but Logsdon just knowing how wide his car is and how much he can play the game there. And as they make their way in towards the source, Butler's going to take another look at this. A quick temporary look, trying to get into Logsdon's head, but Logsdon saying to him, I know you're coming. I'm not going to make this easy. I want you to fight Shink. And meanwhile, Francorchamps, interestingly, sitting at the back of this in the AlphaTauri Change Silver machine. And I wonder whether Shink's hoping that the two in front of him just end up taking a little bit too much out of one another. He can pick up both places, or whether he'll wait to pounce in the final 5 minutes. Perhaps he's just preserving the car right now and going for a late charge. And as they make the way into the Camel Straight, we're going to see the toe effect here now. It's going to be 3 tenths between the trio, and Logsdon and Butler are only literally side by side now as they make the way down. Butler's going to be on the inside. It's going to be Logsdon on the outside. They're going into the braking zone, but who out of the two of them is going to be the boulder under braking? Well, it does look as though Butler's going to go all in, and he takes the lead this race. Logsdon lets it go, but then again, keep in mind this could be a tactical manoeuvre. Logsdon may be thinking, right, we'll do it this way this lap, but later on I want my lead back and I'm going to take it off of you. And Butler will be wary of that, because now Jordan Butler has to think, right, I've got the lead of the race, so what do I do now? I've got to break away, but can he break away? And that's the big question. As meanwhile, in the battle for the prime lead, well, here is your battle between your two belligerents of Adam J. Ballard and Ilya Speaker. It's the Rockefeller Racing green car ahead of the yellow from the same team, the sister team, if you will, and they've got Jake Gertson and Nicholas Feller behind them. And I wouldn't be surprised here if the two of them potentially just have a little bit of a quiet moment here and perhaps settle things on the final lap and see how Gertson and also Feller deal with the pair of them, or try to get involved. But Ballard right now, I think, won't want to lose the lead over his sister teammate's driver. He'll want to try and get things off to a great start in the championship, but he'll want the team to do well. They want both teams to do well, of course, but there's also that inter-team rivalry down in the respective pit paddocks. But meanwhile, looking from them, Matt's Tim Chong looking up the inside there, Dustin Dubois, as they come down into Rivage Corner. It's a lot further back down the order, down in P33, but still, as they battle side by side, Chong making a great return move there. Dubois got the position of him coming out to turn number 6, is where to be understood, and as he makes his way down out of it, he takes it back there, and a very nice move from the Slipstream Sloths driver as the 222 pushes on here, chasing after Samuel Cranach and Stefan Chalafu, but winding the way on through here, and down through Pool they go. The next time to be Samuel Cranach and Stefan Chalafu. You can see them there in the bottom of your camera as they pass them through our cameraman's arc. And meanwhile, looking a bit further up the road from them to Roger Ganesh. Well, right now, the AM driver here, I think he feels like he's a bit out of position. He's a bit out of order as he's clipped by Jermaine Warren, who backs up entirely there. But it's too late, and Ganesh parks in the middle of the road. He tries to get the car out of the way as soon as possible, and does so in great time as he brings it back together. And will just in time as Neil Braden Melling under pressure from Milan Harris, the Rockefeller Racing Gold car on the inside. And as they head in towards Blanchimont Corner, I think the Canadian is going to back off and focus on using the tyre of Harris in order to try and gain versus Glenn Bratton. And Bratton right now doing well to hold on to that P25, P8 in the AM class there, in terms of the fact that Melling has been pushing him all over the place over the last couple of laps in terms of making him drive to a limit. And right now Bratton responding well, but as they head down towards La Source Corner, 5 minutes still on the clock, you can see that right now it is going to be Bratton versus Harris. Harris is going to look around the outside of Bratton. That's going to compromise Bratton's line, and Melling here could go all the way around the outside. He could have the pace to do this, and as they make the way out the corner, I think Bratton's just not got enough impetus now, because Melling's going to have the toe. He's also going to have the inside into Rouge, and he'll get this done. And the 269 driver with a fantastic piece of manoeuvring here simply uses Harris to pull him through to make the move. And as they go over the rise now, I think Bratton's going to be thinking, how on earth have I just lost both places? Well, as they head onto the Camel Straight, meanwhile further back, Stephen Chalafu in a free wide there, almost with Roger Ganesh and Samuel Coran as they head down. And well, it's going to be free wide for a brief moment here as a minimum, as it's going to be Ganesh on what is the it's going to be on the inside for Coran. It's going to be Ganesh in the middle and Chalafu on the right of your picture. And as they make the way to the angle, Chalafu's going to go round the outside of the pair of them. That's absolutely bold and brave as you dare to dream to do so. And the 219 driver right now just making sure he takes the place. And I don't think Coran and Ganesh are going to quite believe it, the fact he's stuck it around the outside. He's made it work, but credit to him, as Chong meanwhile looking for the move versus Ganesh still, and he's got the pressure of even Dorsey behind him, and Dubois not too far behind either, but Dubois now being separated by Dorsey. And well, the Rockefeller Racing green car looks up the inside into X corner, not normally a corner you go too wide in, particularly in GT3 class machinery and higher caliber machines, but in these with their narrow width you can get away with it very easily. But meanwhile, we must look from them, ladies and gentlemen, back up to the very front of the field, and we've still got the ongoing battle for the overall and the pro win today between Butler, Logsdon and Francorchamps, who's dropped to 6 tenths behind. But no, again, I think that is really just an arbitrary gap from Francorchamps. I think he feels like he could run a lot closer to these guys if he wanted to, but meanwhile he's waiting for them to try and knock one off the road as they make their way into the source. And will Butler there not phased by Logston's antics in terms of taking a quick sneak peek, and keeping in mind that Butler did the same about 3 laps ago, trying to get into his rival's head, and now Logston trying to pull the same tricks, but both of them right now have got nerves of steel as they make their way up the hill, going on to what is the 11th lap, and as they roar their way on through, well, this time Butler definitely under some intense pressure here, as Logston's going to have the return move. He'll look on the inside, Butler holds wide coming onto the Camel Straight, and I think Butler making it very clear that he's not interested in winning on this lap, he's interested in winning on the final lap of the race, of which it will be the next lap. As they make the way down, Logston all the way on the inside here. Butler will make him go as late as possible. Look at Francois Shing. Shing goes as late as he dares, but catches a little bit of snap overstick coming off of the brakes. And as they make the way through Lecom, Butler just stays ahead, but Shink there really trying to seize on what was an opportunity to be right on board here with the number 18 driver, but the AlphaTauri Change Silver driver suddenly revealing his hand, which was okay. I know that Butler's going to be the one I need to pass this lap, and then as we go on to the final lap, I've got to try and take on Logston, and is this enough now to just release Logston? That's the question with these two fights. I think Shink will immediately be worried about that. In fact, he's essentially relegated himself to a battle for P2 rather than a battle for the win, and Butler in return will now push as much as he can. It's a 6/10 gap between Butler and Logston, and that's well within slipstream range of these Radicals as they make their way down into the Vantage chicane. But I wonder if Logston can just hold that gap open enough. Will he be safe on the final lap, or will he find himself compromised coming into the Camel Straight? Well, only time will tell, as Butler there absolutely attacking the exit of turn number 12, and in return Shink really keeping it calm here. And I think Shink, either he's backing it off plenty and he doesn't even back off as much, or perhaps his tyres have gone and perhaps that one move has taken the life that he had in the car and sent it skyward, because meanwhile we look to Jason Landry here, who's still trying to make further progress versus John Kroom, and remember, defending pro champion as they make their way on towards Blanchimont and coming on through the left hander very shortly and trying to pick up P6 here with Peter Lowe just in front of them. And coming on through the left hand, no way through right now for Landry. Or can he find it as Lowe having to be mindful of holding the centre line? Landry on the inside, it goes very late on the brakes compared to Kroom, but it's all in, an all-in investment, and Landry pulls it off. And as they make their way out of the bus stop chicane to La Source, they go, and Landry picks up one more place before this is done. But will he be able to gain another one versus what is Lowe, or will Kroom come back at him? Well, we're about to head on to the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. Now all will be revealed and plenty more as all the battles carry on, and we've got battles further down the order as well, including Devoir versus Ganesh here as they make the way onwards towards what will be the Blanchimont corner. You can see the scramble as well in front from Bader versus Kingsbury, but Devoir here defending versus Ganesh on the inside now as they come on through the left hand of Blanchimont. And well, I think you'll have that all sealed and done. But meanwhile, we look from them back up towards the top 10. This is Ilya Speaker, who's trying to hold off Jake Gertsen here, and Gertsen trying to make progress overall versus the Pro driver. The Pro trying to come on through with Ballard just behind as well. And I think this could be a potential 3 wide as they enter the braking zone. Indeed, it is. It's going to be Ballard on the right of your picture, Speaker on the left of your picture, and Gertsen in the middle. And well, Ballard's going to go 1. He's going to go 2. Can he get it stopped in time? He can, but can he seal it? Speaker comes back on the outside of turn number 6, and as he comes on through, Speaker holds on. Gertsen and Ballard side by side coming out the corner. They stay as they were, and Ballard almost getting it done, but Speaker says, I know what you're trying to do, and I'm just going to make it as impossible as I can for you, as they come down through Rivarge corner, and as they make the way off. Meanwhile, Jason Landry versus Peter in the battle for P5. They come down to Bowen corner side by side. They go into left-hander. Landry on the outside here. He's got to do it the hard way, the long way round, if you will, and as they come out of turn number 10 up towards 11 and 12 they go. Will there be a potential move here from them? Well, I think Landry's going to carry on this side-by-side all the way round the corner. And he's going to have the inside now, the second part of the chicane. Lowe's still there. Landry does back off in the end, knowing that Tudor's not going to run the clear into the apex. But behind them, Kroom and McKinsey now also exchanging blows here as Kroom digging in to hold off the ATC Gold car in the Rockefeller Racing Gold cars. They make the way on through. Stavlo too, but looking from them to your race leader, ladies and gentlemen. We'll keep in mind as they make the way on through at Blanchimont corner very shortly. They've got the bus stop and then they've got the source. This race does not end when they come out the bus stop chicane. So right now, Logston and Butler neck and neck as they make their way into the braking zone. It's Logston on the inside, Butler on the outside. Butler backs off early, expects Logston to go deep. Logston does lose control of the car, but the problem is that Butler can't see too far behind as they make them out of the corner. Logston's got the inside here for the run down towards the source. It's all going to come down to the final corner. Butler's on the right, Logston's on the left. Who's going to emerge the victors? They make the way out of the source. Well, here they go, ladies and gentlemen. It's Logston. He defends hard. A little bit of a lock up there and a brief tap. I think Logston may have this. Checker flag's about to wave, and as they make the way across the timeline, it's going to be James Logston who takes the first win overall of the season ahead of Jordan Butler P2, Fran-Corchamps P3. It will then be Mika Hendricks P4 ahead of Peter Lowe P5, Jason Andrew P6, John Crum P7, and then Logan McKenzie P8. Ilya Speaker comes on through to take the first Prime win of the season, P9 overall ahead of Jake Kurtzen, Adam J. Ballard runner-up Prime P11, and then it will be Jay DeVries who comes on through to complete the Prime podium ahead of Mike Young, and then Aaron Lowe complete the top 15 with the top 14. But give a round of applause for this man, ladies and gentlemen, on his debut, takes the AM win. It's David Turn for Slipstream Slavs who holds off Kevin Manning to the line, and then it will be Charles Hosey P17 ahead of Mark Senegal who holds off Jade Davis to complete the AM podium, and it'll be Milan Harris P20 ahead of Dan Vitchuk P21, Braden Mellin P22, Nicholas Vella comes on through for P23. And then it will be behind him Ian Hennebrain, Glenn Bratton, ahead of Samuel Cran, Nick Bader and Dustin Dwyer. And then Tim Chong will complete P29 ahead of Lee Porter, who rounds off your top 30. Still more to come for Jesse Jamison Jr. and Roger Ganesh, P31, P32. And then there will be James Kingsbury, P33 here for Flavour Station Racing. A difficult start to his season, but showing a lot of pace and potential. And we'll definitely keep our eyes on the American there in the fact he's definitely shown his credentials of being on the podium in the AM class. And then we can see Jermaine Warren, P34, ahead of Avon Dorsey, who just misses out. There's Stephen Chalafu and Samuel Bernardi to the line. I think there's been contact there, and we've had Bill Mundacosta and Nick Yakubov come on through to complete the top 39, and then to round off the top 40 we will have Keith Wilfred for Rockefeller Racing Red, who comes on through ahead of what will be John Lauzon, who will complete all of our finishers on the lead lap of this race. We have had two retirees in the form of Sammy Hendricks and Dominic Ford, and we've also had one car finish 4 laps down in the form of Tanner Dibble. As all of our drivers now gradually call their way down and make their way into the pit lane. Well, what a race we've had here today, and well, some of the less mentioned moments of today. Kevin Manning for Fotan Klang chasing after David Turn on the final lap to try and take the AM win, and with it a top 15 finish overall, but still he'll be happy with the run-up spot in the AM class on a P16, particularly given the fact that both Turn and Manning started much further down the order. They started outside the top 10 of the AM class. They started in what was outside the top 35, ladies and gentlemen. With all the chaos and whatnot, Turn and Manning have really soared their way through the field today. The same for Jay Davis as well, in the fact he just missed out on the AM podium, but he started, keep in mind, he started down in what was, I do believe, P43, so the final row of the grid, and he's found his way to finish P19. So some huge moments there from our drivers, and well, with that also a great battle at the end between Peter Lowe and Jason Landry, with Lowe just holding on ahead of Landry, and well, so many highlights from today, and goodness me, I think if that is going to be any indication of what kind of a radical Euro trip we've got ahead of us, folks, it's definitely going to be a fantastic one, and it is going to be perhaps the best season we've ever seen at the middle of the pack racing league. And I know we say it every year, but let's be honest, today has been an absolutely high caliber thrill at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and without further ado, it's only fair we take you through those overall race results. So after 30 minutes of racing at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps to kick off the Radical Eurotrip Championship for 2023, brought to you on iRacing and managed by the Middle of the Pack Racing League, or the MPRL, we see that James Logston taking the win in the end overall and in the pro class of Bear Pope by only a tenth of the line ahead of Jordan Butler for DNA Motorsport. It was hard fought between the two of them, but in the end the Bear Pope driver just about holding on with small lock up into the final corner, but to be fair, when they're racing at that close with little taps there, it can easily be forgiven. It's no more than a racing instant, if that, and I don't think anything's going to take away from the fact we've seen that some of the best battling between the two of them, and it's only round number 1, and we've got plenty more to come. Fran-Corchamps P3 there to round off the overall and the pro podium for AlphaTauri Change Silver. It was a silent end to his race after trying to look for the move on Jordan Butler. I think just overheating the tyres a little bit too much with his opportunistic move. With Mika Hendricks P4 there for ATC Gold, and whilst he may have missed out on the podium, we'll know it's a great result for the two teams today. Ahead of Peter Lowe, who round off the top 5 for Bear Pope 0, and what a battle for the number 11 driver versus Jason Landry for Sunday GT Turtles. And the fact he was able to keep our pro champion from the GR86 Championship behind him, well, Peter Lowe right now definitely putting himself on the map. Then John Crum at P7 there for Rockefeller Racing Gold, ahead of ATC Gold's Logan McKenzie. Your top 8 all being pro drivers, and then we can see your P9 finisher overall, your pro winner, Ilya Speaker for Rockefeller Racing Gold. And definitely a great day for the gold outfit of Rockefeller Racing today, and Speaker will be very happy to pick up from where he left off last season by making it a class win once again. Jake Gertson P10 there for reverse grid racing, completing the top 10 and not quite his day today. 9, there was a top 5 in the cards for him potentially, but he'll still be happy to be held off Adam J. Ballard, who will be your best of SP11 for Rockefeller Racing Green and the second place Pro-Am finisher, and he managed to hold of Jay De Vries there for reverse grid racing to complete the Pro-Am podium of Speaker, Ballard and De Vries, with Mike Young, Aaron Lahr and David Turn completing your top 15, and the Slipstream Sloths driver there, your AM class winner on his debut, taking his first win of his middle of the pack Racing League career as well. What a way to start off in style. And the same could be said for Kevin Manning behind him, P16 for Photon Clang, only missed out on the win in the AM class in the end by 2 attempts, and I suspect plenty more fireworks between the two of them next week. And then Charles Hussey P17 there, the Rockefeller Racing Green driver, who finished P5 in class, and to be fair, that's no mean feat. He'll be very happy with that, as will Mark Senegal with P18 overall, and what will be their third place on the AM podium to complete the AM podium of Turn, Manning and Senegal for Sunday GT Turtles. Jay Davies and Milan Harris completed your top 20 there, and behind the Rockefeller Racing Gold drive, Dan Vitch at the privateer P21, ahead of Braden Mellin, with Nicholas Feller, who was leading the AM class for a sizable period of time, but an error midway through the race, particularly after the restart, cost him very dear, but still holding off in Hennebury for Bear Pope 0 and Glenn Bratton, who completed the top 25. And then we can see the Bear Pope driver Samuel Cran at P26 there, and a difficult start to the season for Cran, and we look forward to potentially seeing a resurgence next week at Zolder, with Nick Bader at P27, Dustin Dewar P28 there for Flavour Station Racing. And whilst he may not have finished inside the top 20 or indeed on the podium in the AM class, definitely it will feel like a winner in terms of the battles he's put on today, as will Tim Chong, his main rival today for Slipstream Sloths, and then at Lee Porter completing the top 30 there for middle of the pack, and with the damage on his car, I think suspecting that damage may have just held him back to a degree. Jesse Jamison Jr., P31 for Photon Clang, ahead of Roger Ganesh for Sunday GT Turtles, and then James Kingsbury ahead of Jermaine Warren, with Stephen Shalafu completing your top 35, and then that's Samuel Bernardi P36 there, ahead of Avon Dorsey. Both drivers having a difficult day for Rockefeller Racing, and 9, it's not going to earmark their season immediately, with Wilman DaCosta, Nick Yakubov and Keith Wilfred completing your top 40. John Lauzon being your last lead lap finisher, P41 there for Alpha Touring Change Silver, and then 4 laps behind him, Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports. And our 2 retirees are Dominique Ford and Sammy Hendricks for Fulton Clang and Bear Pope respectively, as they did complete the race up to 5 laps off of the leader. They will be classified as finishers, and they will get points for efficient positions. But that's how the overall stands concluded. So we then come on to the individual classes to give you an update on the classes. And as we can see, James Logston there, your pro class winner by 1/10 over Jordan Butler, with the top 3 being completed by Francois Schinck to round off that podium. Then Mika Hendricks and Peter Lowe, P4, P5, head of Jason Landry, John Kroom, Logan McKinsey, Jake Gertson and Aaron Lahr, who completed the pro at top 10. And then Milan Harris and Tanner Dibble, the sole driver, who finished off the lead lap in the pro class P12. We come to the Pro-Am class, and here we can see that confirmation of Ilya Speaker being your winner ahead of fellow Rockefeller Racing driver Adam Ballard, and then Jay De Vries completing the Pro-Am podium there, with Mike Young P4 for reverse grid racing just behind his teammate, and Rockefeller Racing Green's Charles Hussey completing the top 5. Samuel Cran, Lee Porter, Jermaine Warren, Avon Dorsey and John Lauzon completing the top 10, and then both finishing 5 laps down at Dominic Ford and Sammy Hendricks. And then lastly comes the AM class. We can see there, albeit we lose the top 2 places at the moment, given our AM class is so diverse, but give us a moment and we will get those places back, I do believe, and there they are. David Turn taking the win for Slipstream Sloths by only 2.5 tenths over Photon Clang, I should say. They don't have a G on the end of the word there. Of Kevin Manning, and then Mark Senegal completing the podium there for Sunday GT Turtles, albeit the 10-second gap there being, I think, a bit of an indicator that something may have occurred, and Turn and Manning able to seize the day, and that's the best way to do so. Jay Davies, P4 there for Rockefeller Racing Red, missed out on the podium, but still he'll be happy with the fact he's finished inside the top 5, and the same for Dan Vitchett there, the privateer. And again, remember what we said earlier on in today's broadcast, always keep your eyes out for Vitchett. He's always pushing for a top 5, and he's got one today, just about finishing 3.5 tenths clear of Braden Melling, with Nicholas Feller, Ian Hennebury, Glenn Bratton and Nick Bader completing your AM top 10. Outside the top 10, best for SP11, Dustin Dewar ahead of Tim Chong, then Jesse Jamison Jr., Roger Ganesh and James Kingsbury completing the top 15 of the AMs, and then to round off the top 20, it was Stephen Shalafu, Samuel Bernardi, Wilman DaCosta, Nick Yakubov and Keith Wilfred, and I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the AM standings. So with that, that's all the results confirmed, and indeed they will be subject to race instant reviews after today, and the stewards are hard at work with those. So we will give you an update on the championship standings going into round number 2 at the start of next week's broadcast. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's only time for us to say, it's time for us to wrap up. So thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you love to race on iRacing, you love the Radical SR8, and you want to join us on the European trip, or perhaps you just want to know a little bit more about what we do at the MPRL and everything in between, well, the best thing to do is firstly join our official Discord, link available on screen there. Indeed, we're a very welcome and open community. We respect everybody of all different levels and backgrounds, and you're very welcome to become part of a very friendly community. Alternatively, if you don't want to join the Discord, well, you want to stay in touch with us, why not do so on social media via our official Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/MOP Racing. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we must turn our attentions towards next time, and for round number 2, we go to everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit. It's the Circuit Zolder, and whilst the racing will be occurring on what will be Wednesday the 13th of September, we're going to be bringing you live from circuit side, or as close as possible as if it were live, on Saturday the 16th of September 2023. Earmark the day, and I can tell you one thing now, ladies and gentlemen, if we've had a season opener to remember, I'm sure round number 2 is going to be even more intense, and those chicanes at Zolder and those short straights are going to make overtakes ever more daring. But until then, we've been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, have a fantastic rest of your weekend, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.